This week on Fresh Ink Online, Batman, Batman, and more Batman, plus all graphic novels, and a very special guest, writer Kyle Higgins. Hi, and welcome to Fresh Ink Online edition. My name is Blair Butler. I cover comic books for Attack of the Show, but more importantly, I am joined today by writer Kyle Higgins. You may know him from Nightwing, which is currently burning up the DC New 52, but actually one of the coolest things about you is the unconventional way you got into writing comics.
Yeah, it's, I mean, they always say that there's no kind of set path,
right.
And once one path is explored, it's then closed forever.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's not the case, but I did a college film. My thesis film was about the superhero labor union of 1960 Chicago, which was a superhero noir called The League, which you can see at theleaguefilm.com.
Cool.
And it's on sale through iTunes. And I put it online, and I started doing some press for it. And one of my best friends, who had designed all the characters, is a very, very talented writer-artist, Eric White.
Okay.
He sent out an email to everyone he knew in the comic industry and that he worked with. And Joe Quesada watched the film like an hour later and emailed me and said, if you ever need help with anything, let me know. And I said, well, if you ever need new writers, you should let me know. And so I basically pitched for like 10 months to Tom Brevoort.
Wow.
And landed a Captain America one-shot with my co-writer, Alex Siegel, from the film. And then that just kind of turned into more and more comic work.
We'll talk to you more about your comics work in a minute, but let's get to the comics this week. Lots of new graphic novels and trades out, and my first pick is The Cape. So this comes to us from the brilliantly twisted mind of Mr. Joe Hill. Sound like I said it came from his mind, but it's his mind. It came from there. And obviously, he is the mastermind of Locke and Key, one of my favorite series. This is another book he did from IDW. I think it's based on a short story he wrote, and it is about the fact that with great power comes great responsibility, unless you're a dick.
Right. It's kind of, if you choose the responsibility.
Yeah.
I guess. Or if responsibility, in this case, covers the grounds of ex-girlfriends who you just want payback against.
Yeah,
so.
Basically a guy gets a cape that gives him the power of flight. Does he use it to do good? Oh, no, he uses it to do the worst things imaginable, including, and this is a slight spoiler, but will probably become an internet meme, dropping a bear on police officers. In fact, the phrase dropping a bear has become the antithesis of jumping the shark.
Okay, well, the first one is The Last Days of American Crime by Rick Remender and Greg Tocchini. I think I'm pronouncing that right?
I think so, yeah.
I am a huge crime fiction noir fan, and I love everything that Rick writes.
Yeah.
So this was something that had slipped past my radar when it first came out. So I have only read it for the first time in trade, and it is kind of this slightly futuristic crime thriller that plays off of a lot of, noir tropes.
Yeah.
But the idea essentially is that the American Peace Initiative, the API, has invented something called a neuroinhibitor that would be broadcast out, and it's very kind of, Philip K. Dick-esque.
Yes.
In the way that it would prevent the public from doing anything illicit or against the law.
Yeah.
So these are the couple days, I think the 2 weeks leading up to the initial broadcast when this would happen, when pretty much it's going to put all career criminals out of business.
Yeah.
So this is the planning of a heist that, would be the last great American crime. Yeah. It's violent, it's just over the top in spots, it's twist after twist. And it was a blast to read.
My next book is Batman, Death by Design. Okay, so if you know anything about me, I like a lot of disparate things, but two of those things are comics and architecture, and if there was a third thing, it'd be the design work of Chip Kidd, who's done some of the most iconic book covers of the last decade. Mm-hmm. So he is doing a Batman book. It is based on two very real, significant architectural events that he's folded into the fabric of Gotham City. So what's great about this, if you love history, specifically, the history of sort of cities and their their iconic buildings. You're going to love this. It's a gorgeous book. It has a really retro feel. In fact, my only sort of complaint about this book, and it's a weird one, because I feel like Chip Kidd is such a brilliant guy that he's kind of giving this, because it's set very much in a specific sort of architectural and stylistic period, the dialogue and the cadence of that time. And there are scenes in here that feel, and I do not mean this to sound passive-aggressive, but like a scene out of Mary Worth. Like, there are weird moments where Bruce Wayne is talking to a lady, and it feels like someone pulled like a Brenda Starr cartoon out and like put those dialogue, like those thought bubbles in. But then you have all this great stuff with architecture and you know, Batman swinging into action against a new villain or mysterious hero. We don't know which. Regardless, beautiful book. If you love architecture, you'll get a kick out of this. You'll probably also get a kick out of reading something with the little thought bubbles, which had seemed to be gone. Oh yeah, they are back with a vengeance in this book. So if you thought Bendis had like turned everything to captions, Chip Kidd is like, no, we're gonna get straight up 60s and 70s with this.
My next one. This was, this is Joss Whedon and John Cassidy's X-Men run. I was a huge X-Men fan growing up. So for me, when this came out, to this day, this is my favorite. Since Claremont Byrne, this is my all-time favorite X-Men run. I mean, it has everything from... I mean, there's some fantastic bits, but... I've always admired Whedon's writing. I've never been a huge fan. I mean, I really enjoyed Firefly.
Yeah.
I've seen, I think, 2 episodes of Buffy ever.
Right.
Which I need to rectify, I know.
I saw a lot of them, I'll admit.
But when I first discovered the series, I got the appeal pretty quickly. Yeah. I mean, his handle on characters, especially in an ensemble, is unparalleled. Yeah. And, I mean, I really feel like one of the things he does best, as evidenced by the Avengers, is getting to the core of a character very quickly and very succinctly in a way that is both identifiable and relatable. And when it's characters that, you know, something like the X-Men, who have been around for, 50 years, to kind of pare everything down and... Keep in mind that his run started on the tails of Grant Morrison's New X-Men, which, I mean, changed a lot of things. To try to follow that up and fold a lot of that continuity into, in my opinion, one of the best superhero runs of the last, 20 years, is really, really impressive. Plus, it has Spider-Man. So Joss Whedon writing Spider-Man seems a match made in heaven. Steve Wacker, take notes. Hire Joss Whedon to write. Just give me one issue. Just a one-shot. A Spider-Man one-shot. And we'll do it with thought bubbles.
My next book is The Activity. This comes to us from Image Comics. Do you like Call of Duty, Modern Warfare, Black Ops, all that jazz? You will probably really enjoy this. Now, this is, I think it's 5 issues collected here. This is an ongoing series about a Black Ops team within our government. They are sent out on various missions, some of which are much more harrowing than others, but each issue of this series is completely self-contained. And one of the things I actually think is kind of groovy about this is that the creators of the series actually sort of invite people to game with them online in Call of Duty, which I think is kind of a neat concept. I know more comic book writers that play Call of Duty online than it's staggering. But this is definitely a great looking book. I think Mitch Gerards does the art. It looks really good. So again, if you like kind of that espionage genre, but with kind of a Call of Duty twist, and you're a big military buff, you will probably get an exhilarating kick out of this.
My next one is from ARCHAIA. It's called A Tale of Sand. It's an interesting story behind this graphic novel. This was a screenplay written by Jim Henson and Jerry Joel in the late 60s. Or actually, I think it was mid to late 60s.
Yeah, it was mid to late 60s.
And so I think the first draft of the script they wrote pre-Muppet days. Yeah. Or pre-Sesame Street, definitely. So the script was found in the vaults of the Henson estate a few years ago. and they took it to ARCHAIA, where Ramon Perez came in and illustrated the entire script essentially.
Yeah.
And it is breathtaking. It's like nothing you've ever seen before.
It's gorgeous.
It's unbelievable. The art is beautiful. The storytelling is impeccable.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's one of those it's one of those crazy kind of just mashups of everything from a guy in way over his head,
right.
ordinary man in an extraordinary, well, set of situations,
right.
to complete parody and over the top at every turn. I mean, there are linebackers who only speak in play diagrams, yeah. and lions in limos and
spaghetti western elements.
Western,
yeah.
So definitely check it out. It's like I said, it's like nothing you've seen before.
My last pick is Batwoman. Hey, so the new 52, had a lot of incredible titles. Obviously, I would say the one that has gotten the most attention is Scott Snyder's pretty jaw-dropping run on Batman. One of my runner-ups for best of is Batwoman, which features in this volume art by J.H. Williams, the third, possibly one of the greatest artists working. I mean, not possibly. He is one of the greatest artists working in comics today. The layouts in this book are breathtaking. Not only that, but there are sort of like weird subliminal messages hidden in various panels. Dialogue hidden in crunched up capes. It's a visual treat for the eyes. It also features the hottest sex scene in any DC comic, I think, of the new relaunch, to the extent that, like, when we were reviewing it in here, it was, like, getting steamy in this small room. It's basically, if you love Batwoman, look, you're going to enjoy this, but more importantly, if you like comics as an art form, as a visual medium, you have to read this. It is a delight for your eyeballs. Also pushing an R. Just throwing that out there.
I guess my last one here was one of my favorite miniseries of the last year, and it is The Astonishing Spider-Man and Wolverine by Jason Aaron and Adam Kubert. Yeah. And it is just wall-to-wall action, insanity, and loads of fun. It is a time-traveling buddy cop story between two rather unlikely partners, in Spider-Man and Wolverine. And it's like I said, it's a blast. Adam's art is gorgeous as always. A lot of little nods, a lot of fun riffs and parodies. He pulls. There's a whole sequence where he pulls an Andy and does the whole pencil and paint look of Wolverine Origin.
Oh wow!
From back in the day, because it's supposed to be in the same era. There's one of the best uses of Mondo in the last 10 years, probably, maybe longer. There's mini Wolverine and Spider-Man caricatures that speak in catchphrases like "Booyah" and "Snickety Snickety, here comes the stabbing." So and there's a triple gatefold spread of Wolverine facing off against Doctor Doom, the Planet. So I don't know how you can top that.
Well, Kyle, thank you so much for being here. Now, before you go, if people want to track you down in a positive and safe way, where can they find you on Twitter or etc.?
Well, even if it's a negative way and it's just hate mail, that's fine too. Yeah. It's Kyle D. Higgins on Twitter. Is the best way to find me. Otherwise, I've got the website. I have a website. It's theleaguefilm.com. But between that and Twitter, I'm pretty easy to reach.
Awesome. And, of course, Nightwing is coming out monthly from DC.
Yeah. But everyone who watches the show has such good taste that they've already read it by now.
Absolutely.
So it's a moot point, right?
And last thing before we let you go, I did want to ask a question. What was it like, going from collaborating with people to helming your own book by yourself? How was that transition? Because you obviously had done stuff with your writing partner and then with Scott Snyder. It's definitely it's an experience. Yeah.
It's kind of one of those things where you jump off the deep end into the deep end of the pool, and you have to trust and hope and believe in yourself enough that you'll be able to swim rather than the alternative.
Right.
So it's all a learning process, and I feel incredibly fortunate to be given this opportunity and to be, headlining my favorite character in comics by far. I mean, I have trades sitting over here from the mid to late 90s that I've had since then. I mean, of the Dixon stuff that I've read thousands and thousands of times growing up. So it's definitely a lot of fun.
Dreams can come true.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for watching Fresh Ink Online. Of course, if you want more Fresh Ink, go to g4tv.com/freshink. If you want a free preview of one of the comics we covered today, in a box floating below us at g4tv.com/freshink, the fine folks at Graphically have provided a preview for you. And if you need up-to-the-minute comics news, visit our friends at comicsalliance.com. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time. This week on Fresh Ink Online, prepare to have your mind blown with some amazing comic book choices from Ms. Tiffany Smith.
Hey!
Hey, welcome to Fresh Ink Online Edition. I'm Blair Butler, and with me is returning champion Tiffany Smith.
Champion, I feel like I should cheer for myself.
No, you should. Now, you are like one of the busiest ladies on the planet. Tell us just a few of the things that you're up to right now so that people can familiarize themselves.
Okay. Well, I do some stuff, obviously, with G4. We just did E3, which was awesome.
It was.
And then I work with Oxygen, which is pretty exciting because we're doing a couple of new shows, which I think people will be excited about if you're into dance at all. It's been crazy, busy, and awesome, but obviously still sneaking in my comic book reading time.
Yeah, and you actually have some really great picks for us this week, including one book I didn't even know existed, so you have already illuminated me. But let's kick things off with your first comic this week.
So my first pick is The Left Bank Gang, and it is by Jason. Now, I like to say that this book has some serious swagger. That's how I describe it. It's one of the coolest books that I've ever read. It takes place in the 1920s in Paris, and it's just a bunch of those incredible artists who are all living together and working on their writing. And it's Ernest Hemingway, F. Scott Fitzgerald, Ezra Pound. And what I love about this is, with Jason's take, they are not just writers, they're comic book writers who are struggling artists. And since they're struggling, come up with a way to earn money, which is a bank robbery, which I'm not going to tell you guys how it ends. But what I love about this book is that you can tell he's a true fan of these writers because there are jokes where you're like, if you know about Ernest Hemingway, you're like, okay, you could tell that he took some of his writing and put it into this book. And then there are comic book writing jokes where there's a part where Hemingway is sitting and talking with Gertrude Stein, and she's giving him tips on how to write. And she's like, never give narrative text, like a little later. And then 3 frames down the page, it literally has the box on the top that says a little later. So I just love his snarky humor in this book, and if you've not read it, definitely pick it up. It's amazing.
My pick is Fatale. Yes, Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips' amazing meditation on the noir trope of the femme fatale is finally out in a trade, and it is amazing. I have to say this is one of my favorite Image Comics series / comics series out there today. We've talked about this before, how much we love it. This is the incredible team that brought us Criminal over at Marvel's Icon imprint, and now take a little H.P. Lovecraft, mix it into your film noir, and give it Sean Phillips' glorious visuals, and you get Fatale. It's great. It's a cool deconstruction of the genre, and also a cool, it's just a cool story. Also super disgusting and really violent. Oh my God, so violent, but so wonderful. This is a great book.
One of the things I love about that series, too, is that it's beautiful and gory at the same time, which I think is a hard balance to make. And in my next pick, I think that Becky Cloonan does an amazing job of balancing beauty and gore as well. So this is Bram Stoker's Dracula, illustrated by Becky Cloonan, and we were talking about this earlier, but she was like, this is the book that she hadn't even heard about.
I didn't know she did this book. Yeah, my mind is blown.
Yeah, so I follow her on Instagram, and she was posting pictures of this project that she was working on, so I went to my comic shop, and I was like, guys, you've got to get me Dracula that Becky Cloonan's doing, and they were like, wait, what? We haven't heard of it. So I felt pretty badass.
Yeah.
So what is so awesome about this is I'm a huge classic literature fan, so it is the actual book, and she just has illustrations along the side. They're about a little over 50, I think, in here. But they're so beautiful to look at. And like we talked about, the balance of beauty and gore. The vampires are gruesome when they need to be, but stunning when they're not trying to suck your blood. And another thing about her artwork that works so well in this book is that it fits well with the journal and diary entries. It doesn't feel really jarring next to all of the text. Because if you've read Bram Stoker's, you know that a lot of it is journal entries. So it feels like it could potentially be someone sketching along with their journal. So if you've not read this, definitely take a look at it. And like we were saying, she's doing Conan the Barbarian now, which is beautiful as well. So check that out.
Yeah. And I have to say, it's like a weird little footnote. I'm fascinated. There are a lot of like artist editions of Dracula. Like there's one that Ben Templesmith did, I think. There is the Mike Mignola one that he actually did for the Coppola movie. But like these artists with these absolutely unique styles, like Clunin, Mignola, Templesmith, have done stuff with Dracula. And I think it's so cool that this book, you know, stands the test of time, and these great artists all bring their unique vision to it, and it looks totally different every time.
Well, and vampires are so hot right now.
They sparkle!
There are no sparkles in this book. No sparkles, guys.
Thank God. So my second book is The Comic Book History of Comics, perhaps the most entertaining history lesson you will ever read about comics. This is absolutely fantastic. It comes to us from writer Fred Van Lente, who you may know from some of his Marvel work, but this is just this great, you know, if you've ever wondered about the history of comics, the Comics Code, the seduction of the innocent, you know, various editorial mandates throughout the history of mainstream comics, this book has all the info, all the dirt, and of course it's illustrated in comic book form. It's really riveting reading, and I don't know. I had a pretty great time reading it. Some of the Alan Moore stuff is really fun. You know, talking creator-owned comics. It's great. It's a history lesson that is super compelling and really entertaining, and I highly recommend it. I also love the fact that the back is done like an old pulp comic. That really delights me. It's really great stuff.
So on to my next pick. It's Tanpopo from Camilla Dorico. She is just one of the most amazing artists that I've ever seen. I love her work. The first time I noticed her work was in Sky Pirates and Neoterra, which is beautiful. It was one of those books where I saw it on the shelf and I was like, I have no idea what this is about, but I want to read it. So this is actually based off of Faust. What she does with the frames, there's so much freedom in the pages for her that text is used within the artwork, and I just love it because it's so different than anything I've ever seen before. The story is of a young girl who has all sorts of knowledge but doesn't experience any emotion. So she ends up making a deal with Poodle, which is also a devil in disguise. So that's the first of this series. She's actually doing 10 of them. The first 3 have come out, so definitely go get those because they are amazingly beautiful. And I feel like I'm sounding super cool that I read all this old literature, but I'm not really that cool. Next for me is Johnny Wander, and no, there is no character in the book called Johnny Wander. It's actually written by Ananth and Yuko, and if that's the right way to pronounce them.
I mispronounce people's names all the time. Don't worry. Yeah, I'm terrible.
So they are the writers and artists, and it's real life stories. They're one-page standalone comics, so I feel like this is a little bit of a cheat for a graphic novel because it's a bi-weekly online comic, but I had to get it in here because it's one of my personal favorites. So they tell all of these little inside jokes, and somehow they make you feel a part of them. It could be anything from her chatting on the phone with her dad and just the funny things that happen to a dream about a recipe that she made and all of her friends being like, now you have to make it. And you can tell that they really enjoy Scott Pilgrim and Brian Lee O'Malley in this book. There are references to him in it, and I just love that, you know, where it's like you can tell that writers and artists are influenced by people, and when they bring it into their series, you're like, yes, I'm on board for that. So for me, every page of this book is like sunshine in your life. If I want to get really cheesy, it's like a modern day take on Norman Rockwell pictures for me, where it's like just a slice of life. I love it. So if you've not read this, definitely take a look. Another cool thing, because it's online, they really take a lot of influence and input from their fans. So in the back of this, there's extras that show you how they came up with ideas or things that didn't work and then how they tweaked it for the actual comic, which is awesome.
So my final pick is Batman Earth 1. Yes, this is Jeff Johns and Gary Frank, one of the best creative teams in comics, doing for Batman what J. Michael Straczynski did for Superman of Earth 1. So a younger, more modern Batman, Alfred in this case, is a war veteran with one leg who is a total badass, and I might add, a bit of a silver fox.
What?
Yep. We get the Batman origin story again. This is a moderate spoiler, not a huge spoiler, but there is definitely some complexity and perhaps a conspiracy to the death of Bruce Wayne's parents this time around. There is the introduction of a new villain who will creep your skin off. It seems like, and I mean this is a compliment, something Gail Simone would have written in Secret Six. It's that creepy a villain. But it's definitely a reinvention of the character. And the Earth One stuff, the thing is we have seen both the Superman and the Batman origin stories a lot. They are very, very familiar. The same complaint people have about the new Amazing Spider-Man movie where they go,
reboots.
Yeah, why are you rebooting it again and again? I will say that the Straczynski take on Superman of Earth 1 had sort of a new villain that kind of tied into his origin story and why he had to leave Krypton. And this one, sort of reconstitutes some of the characters like the Penguin and a couple others in ways that are really interesting to the origin story. It is definitely not a page one reinvention of this character, if that's what you were worried about or if that's what you were looking for. But look, Gary Frank's art is freaking believable. Like, this guy could draw, he could draw the phone book, which would be boring, but with Gary Frank's art, I would check that out. It'd be weird, though. But anyway, the bottom line is, if you loved Superman Earth 1, then you will probably love this. If you found Superman Earth 1, which I know a lot of people labeled the emo Superman, to be not necessarily enough of a reinvention for you, then you may find the same problems with this, but hell, this artwork is gorgeous.
So my final pick is Pride of Baghdad by Brian K. Vaughan. And this, for me, is one of those books that takes an issue that might be hard to discuss and puts it in with a medium that I love and makes it that much more accessible.
Yeah.
When you first read this book, it's about a pride of lions that escapes a Baghdad zoo while there are American troops invading.
Yeah.
And so it seems like a survival story of family, but when you really look into it, each lion has a different take on what freedom is and what war is and how you handle it. And they go through a lot. They get attacked by a bear because that's what happens in war times as well. But there's fighter jets, they're in bombed out buildings. And then at the end of it, they come in contact with American troops. And the last page and the frame where they ask, what was that? Were these lions wild? And one of the soldiers says, no, they were free. It's just so moving to me because it's one of those things where what is freedom? And you read this book and what he does so well is that no one take is pushed forward as the right one or the best one. They're just all really balanced, different takes. And the artwork in here is just so beautiful. You've got these majestic lions with fighter jets flying overhead, or like I said, in a bombed out building and the lions are there. So it works so well, and there's just something about it that I feel like makes you feel an emotional connection to what people would go through in a war-torn country. So if you've not read this, definitely pick it up. It was one of the most moving reads for me.
Yeah, I mean, the art is incredible. It's this kind of amazing metaphor for and I say this not flippantly, but the quote-unquote liberation of Iraq. It sort of meditates, what did it mean that, American troops liberated Iraq? And it's a gorgeous, emotional, you will probably cry read. It also, and I do not, again, say this flippantly, maybe the most depressing comic. I mean, it is heartbreaking. It is a tough read, but it is an incredible read.
And I think when you can do that with non-human characters, it says so much about the writing, And he's a great writer when you got Why the Last Man, but this is amazing. It'll probably make you cry. Make sure you've got tissues.
Yes. She's not kidding. Tiffany Smith, you guys, like bringing the thunder and the rain. Seriously, where can people find you to follow you on Twitter or elsewhere?
On Twitter, I'm at TiffanyStweets, and then on Facebook, it's just my name as well. And I try and keep everybody updated on some of the stuff I'm reading in comics and just my life in general.
Right on. That's great. Well, it is a pleasure to have you here. If you'd like to see perhaps Tiffany's prior episode, and why wouldn't you? She's awesome. Go to g4tv.com/freshink. And by the way, there will be a free preview of part of one of the comics we're covering here, floating below us, courtesy of graphically.com. And additionally, if you want up-to-the-minute comics news, go to comicsalliance.com. And now, Tiffany, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
You have been very kind to put up with me.
I'm excited to be here. Every time you ask me to come in, I'm like, yes, I get to hang out and talk comics with Blair again. I'm in.
Yay. My last pick is, hey, it's Batman of Earth 1. Yeah. Apparently I can't read titles anymore. Let me try that again. Sorry. You can put that in there as the outtake. That's right. Fresh Ink Online is back. Back from the dead like a zombie. We're going to cover some zombie books, but more importantly, Ultimates writer Sam Humphries is here. Take it away, Sam.
Yes, Internet. Quit chatting with your friends. Quit your email. Close all them tabs at. It is time to talk comic books.
So many comics. Welcome to Fresh Ink Online Edition. My name is Blair Butler, and I'm joined today by Mr. Sam Humphries. But before we talk to him and talk comics, a couple really quick things. We are back after a long hiatus. You may or may not know Attack of the Show is going through a lot of big changes, really exciting ones, but a lot of my attention has been sucked up by working on that show and writing on it. So we are actually going to a once-a-month Fresh Ink edition. Now, I know you might be thinking, oh no, once a month you aren't covering weekly comics, but the good news is graphic novels galore, people. And
we're going big, full-size books here.
Yes, hot off the presses. And in fact, we'll kick things off with our first 2 picks. Then we're going to take a break, talk to Sam, and go back for the big finish.
I'm into it.
All right,
let's do this.
I'm going to kick things off with Locke and Key Clockworks.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So look, you guys, if you've ever watched Fresh Ink Online before, you know I absolutely love this comic. It is written by Joe Hill. The art is by Gabriel Rodriguez. It is a perfect symphony of a writer and artist working together flawlessly. It's just gorgeous, and it's the story of this family that goes through a horrible tragedy and moves into this old house in Lovecraft, Massachusetts. So you know they're
Lovecraft, Massachusetts. What could go wrong?
Exactly. What could possibly happen? But the house is kind of this old house full of mystical doors with keys, and every door has a different power or property. Now, the series has an almost Lost-like mythology. It's one of those big mythology series. Mm-hmm. And every time something like Lost tries to pay off all the mythology, it doesn't work so well.
No comment.
Well,
no comment.
For the first time ever, this book is bucking the trend.
Wow.
I said bucking, just to be clear. It's phenomenal. They explain everything in this volume, and it is riveting. It's so clever, makes total sense. The payoff is completely worth it. So if you've been reading Locke and Key from the get-go, this is the volume you've been waiting for. Everything will be revealed.
My number 4 pick this week, graphic novels. We're going big. I decided to go really big and really wide with this beautiful beast. This is Dal Tokyo by Gary Panter, the notable demented genius, the elder statesman of absolute bizarre, amazing comic book work. This guy's been around for decades, and they're still digging up stuff that he's done years and years ago and bringing it out to all of us. That's how prolific this guy is. Dal Tokyo itself is a legend because it was a weekly alternative comic strip that appeared only in Japan. He created it for the Japanese audience. He's got a crazy following over there. Most people in America know him because he is the Emmy-winning art director for Pee-wee's Playhouse. Demented genius. What did I tell you? And thanks to the people at FANTAGRAPHICS, we finally have Dal Tokyo in English, in print, in America, in this amazing format. It's a beautiful book. You really gotta check it out.
My next pick is Walking Dead: A Larger World. Yes, this is the newest installment in Robert Kirkman's epic. Perhaps you watch the TV show, perhaps you read the comic. This is always my favorite series, month in and month out. And, I have to say that this particular volume, it's a bit of a setup. They're setting things up, but there is such an amazing tonal shift for the series in this issue. Of course, if you're reading it in the singles and you know what's coming, oh my God, the horror, the tragedy. But this is really interesting, and again, finds the survivors kind of trying to reestablish society, some normal form of living. Let's just say zombies in the mix, that never goes well for anybody.
My number 3 graphic novel pick here on Fresh Ink is Incognito, the classified edition by Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips. They've been getting a lot of attention recently for their new series, the amazing noir horror story,
Yes.
Fatale.
It's phenomenal.
And people have been digging on their criminal series for a long time, and justifiably so. And I feel like this one gets overlooked a little bit. This is a noir crime superhero series. And Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips just do to superheroes what they've done to the crime genre and the horror genre. This team, this artist and writer team, they've been together for years, for decades maybe even at this point, but they keep just nailing it. Every issue, every concept, every story, every character, even every line of dialogue just gets more and more memorable. If you like their work, even if you've never checked out their stuff before, you owe it to yourself to get this book. And look at this beautiful hardcover edition. It's got both Incognito stories, all sorts of great extras. Wonderful deal.
And now, an interlude. Sam...
A pause.
A pause.
In the frenzy, the comics frenzy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sam, you have gone... The first time you were here, you had written a little comic with perhaps some controversial content, and now you are helming perhaps one of Marvel's biggest books.
It's unbelievable, right?
Yeah.
Like, somebody must have made a mistake.
Right.
I wrote a book called Our Love is Real, which is nefarious for many reasons, but mostly because it's a sci-fi love story about a cop who's really in love with his dog, and that's about as much as specific as I'll get right now. And blowing my mind as much as everybody else's, I'm sure. It got me more work, including working on the Ultimates in the year where the Avengers, Joss Whedon's Avengers, is the biggest movie around the world. But it's been fantastic. I love working on the book. We got a lot of great things coming up. We've been doing the Divide We Fall event this summer.
Right.
Following it up with United We Stand later this month in September. A lot of good stuff, so pay attention. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Now, you also have a couple comics at Boom. You've got Higher Earth and Fanboys versus Zombies. For people who aren't familiar with these, kind of what's the pitch?
Absolutely. Fanboys versus Zombies, real easy to explain. It's about a zombie outbreak at Comic-Con. It's a zombie outbreak at Comic-Con. It's in the title. Everything you need to know is there. It's a horror comedy. The art's by Jerry Gaylord. He brings such a great cartoony energy to the book, but also this disturbing love of gore as well. And then Higher Earth, which is another sci-fi book that I'm writing. It's about an empire that doesn't conquer other planets. They conquer other Earths across parallel timelines.
Oh, nice.
And that gets very sticky for them very rapidly. You get multiple versions of yourself who are just as hard-bitten, as dedicated as you are, but for different reasons. There's lots of clashes, a lot of identity crises, lots of butt-kicking and blood and sci-fi and weird concepts. Francisco Biagini is the artist, and I test him every month by scripting something that should be impossible to draw, and he always delivers. So it's been a lot of fun.
That's awesome. And last but not least, you are like the king of self-publishing. You're like, publisher?
The king.
I don't need a publisher.
Maybe the name of self-publisher is the jester, perhaps. I don't know.
You just finished up Sacrifice, correct?
We're just finishing up right now. We did the first 3 issues, six issue limited series. We did the first 3 issues, myself and artist Dalton Rose. And stay tuned very soon for an announcement about the remaining 3 issues.
Nice.
I get questions about it a lot, and I love it because Sacrifice is very near and dear to my heart. It's probably my most personal work, and I love when people love it and when people get pissed off that we haven't finished it. But the good news is that we are finishing it, and it's a lot closer than you think.
Right. Joy Division and the Aztecs.
Joy Division and the Aztecs, yeah, exactly.
And now, a return to the graphic novels.
Let's do this.
So look, my next pick is 27 Second Set. Now, the first 27 came out a couple years ago. It's written by Charles Soule, and the thing that I loved about it is that the first 27 is about this guy named Will Garland, I think is his name. He's a one-hit wonder. He wrote one song, made a ton of money off the residuals. Band broke up, hurt his hand, has never recorded again. So he sort of is granted this kind of mystical, this sort of mystical device that's set into his chest, and it allows him not only to play the guitar again, but to use these sort of almost godlike powers. The catch is, he can only use it so many times, and then he's dead. He's done. And the whole, sort of crux of the first comic is this metaphor for, like, how much would you sacrifice to have a little more of greatness, right? The first 27 is phenomenal. This follow-up, the first 27 ended, and you thought, it's self-contained, and it sort of ends on a hopeful note in the sense that people have noticed that he's got this ability, but it also is something that's going to kill him. Well, this second volume sort of explores not only the fact that to reclaim the celebrity status that he's sort of lost, he's dying. It also finds a rather sinister fellow one-hit wonder who will do anything to get the device from him. And let's just say you will never look at bands like Chumbawamba or other one-hit wonders.
Hootie and the Blowfish?
Exactly.
Gin Blossoms?
I know.
Don't ruin the Gin Blossoms for me.
Imagine if they were killing people to get a little more fame.
That actually sounds kind of rad.
I can't think of any songs, by the way, that any of those bands sing except for Get
Hey
Knocked Down.
Jealousy, do 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 do, hey Jealousy. My number 2 pick, the graphic novel selection, is A Message to Adolf, Part 1 by Osamu Tezuka. Again, look at this gorgeous book. If you're used to just reading floppies and monthlies, I mean, I love floppies too. I read them all the time, but there's some beautiful design work and production work being done in comic books. These books are wonderful works of art, and this is a book that I have been anticipating for decades. Tezuka is known as the godfather of manga. Page for page, I would argue that he is the most influential comic book creator of all time in any country. Come at me, internet. Debate with me. Argue with me. But this is one of his latter works and considered his masterpiece of the 80s. It is a semi-period piece that takes place during World War II. It's about 3 people named Adolf, one of which is Adolf Hitler. 2 of the others are best friends in Japan, one of whom is a Japanese boy and the other one is a German boy during the time of the war. And then in the present day, there's a journalist who's researching their story and trying to unravel the secrets of Japan and Germany and the war. And obviously, Tezuka, as a Japanese gentleman who lived through the war, writing this from the perspective of the 80s, it's an incredibly powerful story. It's an amazing historical epic. This is just part 1 of 2. This is available now. Part 2 comes out in October. It's really just a fantastic story you can really sink your teeth into. I loved it. I can't wait for the next volume.
My final pick is Volume 9 of Scalped.
Yes,
Scalped.
Oh
my gosh.
A round of applause for Scalped. Jason,
Phenomenal.
Aaron, Guerra, the whole crew. Congratulations.
Yeah. This series has been so consistently good, and I have to say, I am one of the jerks out there that's only reading it in trade, which I know means I'm part of the problem because if I were buying the single issues, yada, yada, yada.
There's sales and the blah, blah, blah.
Exactly.
Yes,
it's important. It's important to support, these books.
Pre-orders.
Yes.
Spend your money. Open them all.
Do it, or else books like this will not continue to come out. But look, this is Scalped Volume 9. Jason Aaron has always said, that he has a very finite endpoint for this series. And let's just say he is speeding towards that endpoint like a train. Scalped, for those who don't know, is this incredible, almost like Sopranos on a Native American reservation story. You've got meth running, you've got the FBI, you've got
prostitution,
people, murder,
gambling.
It's an amazing epic story, and in this volume, let's just say kind of all the chickens are coming home to roost. A major character does not make it out of this volume, and it is just that moment is so intense. and just kind of the almost wordless fury of the main character because he can't talk in this volume for reasons that will become clear once you pick it up. It's incredible. This is a fabulous series. If you have not already been reading it, go out, pick it up, because this volume is just incredible.
So my number one pick, another gorgeous book to look at and hold. It is God and Science, Return of the Thai Girls by Jaime Hernandez. Jaime Hernandez, in my opinion, the greatest living cartoonist.
Love and Rockets.
Amazing. Love and Rockets, fantastic achievement. If you've always been curious to check out his work, but you've been a little intimidated because his Love and Rockets work goes back decades in the real world and in his fictional world, this takes place, is an independent story. And it's a superhero story. It's a bunch of female superheroes in this world that he's built. This is a collection of stories that he's published over the past 3 or 4 years. And I will say this is one of the best superhero stories I've read in a long, long time. And I love Jaime's work. I did not expect this out of him. I read virtually everything he's done. I did not expect something like this. But he really did it. He did an amazing superhero story. It's even better than the superhero books that I write. If you can believe that. A living legend versus me? I mean, come on. But this just came out from FANTAGRAPHICS. It's available now. Beautiful hardcover set. It's a great book, especially if you're a superhero fan that mostly reads Marvel and DC. This will really give you a breath of fresh air. If you're a superhero fan and you mostly read Marvel and DC, you should really pick up this book. It'll give you a breath of fresh air in the superhero genre. It'll make you look at superheroes a little differently, and really just enhance your enjoyment of superheroes from any publisher. So, God and Science, Return of the Thai Girls, highly recommended. It's my number one pick. Number one pick.
And last but not least, it turns out
we're not done yet.
Yeah.
Don't go anywhere. Don't open your chat windows. Come on, we got more to talk about.
We had one final thing. It turns out that we were both really excited about a book that has not come out yet, but we've seen parts of it, and it is phenomenal. Take it away.
Yeah, absolutely. The graphic is a graphic novel adaptation of Madeleine L'Engle's classic young adults novel, A Wrinkle in Time. It's adapted by cartoonist Hope Larson, who does fantastic work. You could not have picked a better cartoonist to adapt this book because it's equal parts funny and beautiful, but weird and bizarre and mind-blowing. This is a book that just rearranged my mode of thinking when I was a kid, and I've returned to it over and over again throughout the years, and Hope does not shy away from all the crazy, weird, icky stuff that is really the selling point of the book. It's beautiful line work with spot color, blue coloring. This book comes out October 2nd. It's an amazing adaptation. You owe it to yourself to pick it up, whether you're a fan of the book already or you never read it before.
Yeah, and I read the book when I was a kid, and now I'm like very excited to revisit it through this format. So there you go.
We read it as a kid, and what went wrong with us? Absolutely nothing. We're perfect human beings, so pick it up.
Thank you so much for watching Fresh Ink Online. Thank you so much to Mr. Sam Humphries for being here.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for watching. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and as always, if you'd like to see past episodes of the show, go to www.g4tv.com/freshink. I put the www in there just because I am slow. But look, it's lovely to be back, and please come back, visit us again. There's definitely a lot of graphic novels to cover.
Absolutely. There always is. Always more good stuff to read.
Yes? I don't know why I keep doing that.